Religion in Africa is multifaceted and has been a major influence on art, culture and philosophy. Today, the continent's various populations and individuals are mostly adherents of Christianity, Islam, and to a lesser extent traditional African religion. In Christian or Islamic communities, religious beliefs are also sometimes characterized with syncretism with the beliefs and practices of traditional religions. African traditional religion. Africa encompasses a wide variety of traditional beliefs. Although religious customs are sometimes shared by many local societies, they are usually unique to specific populations or geographic regions. According to Dr. J. Omosade Walalu, the traditional in this context means indigenous, that which is foundational, handed down from generation to generation, meant as to be upheld and practiced today and forevermore. A heritage from the past, yet not treated as a thing of the past but that which connects the past with the present and the present with eternity, often spoken of in the terms of a singularity, deliberate, yet conscious of the fact that Africa is a large continent with multitudes of nations who have complex cultures, innumerable languages and myriads of dialects. The essence of this school of thought is based mainly on oral transmission, that which is written in people's hearts, minds, oral history, customs, temples and religious functions. It has no founders or leaders like Gautama the Buddha, Jesus, Ashoka, or Muhammad. It has no missionaries of the intent to propagate or to proselytize. Some of the African traditional religions are those of the Sierra of Senegal, the Yoruba and Igbo of Nigeria, and the Akan of Ghana and the Ivory Coast. The religion of the Gbe peoples of Benin, Togo and Ghana is called Vodun and is the main source for similarly named religions in the diaspora, such as Louisiana Voodoo, Haitian Vodou, Cuban Vodou, Dominican Voodoo and Brazilian Vodum. Abrahamic religions. The majority of Africans are adherents of Christianity or Islam. African people often combine the practice of the traditional belief with the practice of Abrahamic religions. Abrahamic religions are widespread throughout Africa. They have both spread and replaced indigenous African religions, but are often adapted to African cultural contexts and belief systems. The World Book Encyclopedia has estimated that in 2002 Christians formed 40% of the continent's population, with Muslims forming 45%. It was also estimated in 2002 that Christians form 45% of Africa's population, with Muslims forming 40.6%. Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith in Africa has a diverse history. It is the third most widespread organized Abrahamic religion in Africa after Islam and Christianity after its wide-scale growth in the 1950s and extend in the 1960s. The Association of Religion Data Archives lists many large and smaller populations in Africa, with Kenya, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Africa and Zambia among the top 10 numerical populations of Baha'is in the world in 2005, and Mauritius in terms of percentage of the national population. All three individual heads of the religion, Baha'u'llah (Abdul Baha) and Shoghi Effendi, were in Africa at various times. More recently, the roughly 2,000 Baha'is of Egypt have been embroiled in the Egyptian identification card controversy from 2006 through 2009. Since then there have been homes burned down and families driven out of towns. On the other hand, sub-Saharan Baha'is were able to mobilize for 9 regional conferences called for by the Universal House of Justice the 20th of October 2008 to celebrate recent achievements in grassroots community building and to plan the next steps in organizing in the home areas. Christianity is now the second most widely practiced religion in Africa and is the largest religion in sub-Saharan Africa. Most adherents outside Egypt, Ethiopia and Eritrea are Roman Catholic or Protestant. Several syncretistic and messianic sects have formed throughout much of the continent, including the Nazareth Baptist Church in South Africa and the Alajira churches in Nigeria. There is also fairly widespread populations of Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witnesses. The oldest Christian denominations in Africa are the Coptic Church in Egypt and the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church and the Eritrean Orthodox Tewahedo Church. All Oriental Orthodox, which rose to prominence in the 4th century AD after King Ezana the Great made Ethiopia one of the first Christian nations. In the first few centuries of Christianity, Africa produced many figures who had a major influence outside the continent, including St. Augustine of Hippo, St. Maurice, Origen, Tertullian, and 3 Roman Catholic popes, as well as the biblical characters Simon of Cyrene and the Ethiopian eunuch baptized by Philip the Evangelist. Christianity existed in Ethiopia before the rule of King Ezana the Great of the Kingdom of Aksum, but the religion took a strong foothold when it was declared a state religion in 330 AD, becoming one of the first Christian nations. The earliest and best-known reference to the introduction of Christianity to Africa is mentioned in the Christian Bible's Acts of the Apostles, and pertains to the evangelist Philip's conversion of an Ethiopian traveler in the 1st century AD. Although the Bible refers to them as Ethiopians, scholars have argued that Ethiopia was a common term encompassing the area south-southeast of Egypt. Other traditions have the convert as a Jew who was a steward in the Queen's court. All accounts do agree on the fact that the traveler was a member of the royal court who successfully succeeded in converting the Queen, which in turn caused a church to be built. Tyrannius Rufinus, a noted church historian, also recorded a personal account, as do other church historians such as Socrates and Sosimius. Some experts predict the shift of Christianity's center from the European industrialized nations to Africa and Asia in modern times. Yale University historian Lamin Sanneh stated that African Christianity was not just an exotic, curious phenomenon in an obscure part of the world, but that African Christianity might be the shape of things to come. The statistics from the World Christian Encyclopedia illustrate the emerging trend of dramatic Christian growth on the continent and supposes that in 2025 there will be 633 million Christians in Africa. Islam. According to the World Book Encyclopedia, Islam is the largest religion in Africa, with 47% of the population being Muslim, accounting for 1/4 of the world's Muslim population. The faith's historic roots on the continent stem from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, whose early disciples migrated to Abyssinia in fear of persecution from the pagan Arabs. The spread of Islam in North Africa came with the expansion of Arab Empire under Caliph Umar through the Sinai Peninsula. Spread of Islam in West Africa was through Islamic traders and sailors. Islam is the dominant religion in North Africa and the Horn of Africa. It has also become the predominant religion on the Swahili coast as well as the West African seaboard and parts of the interior. There have been several Muslim empires in Western Africa which exerted considerable influence, notably the Mali Empire, which flourished for several centuries, and the Songhai Empire, under the leadership of Mansa Musa, Soni Ali and Askia Muhammad. The vast majority of Muslims in Africa are Sunni, belonging to either Maliki or Shafi schools of jurisprudence. However, Hanafi school of jurisprudence is also represented, mainly in Egypt. There are also sizable minorities of Shias, Ahmadis, Ibadi and Sufis. Judaism. Adherents of Judaism can be found scattered in a number of countries across Africa, including Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Nigeria and Southern Africa. Hinduism. Hinduism has existed in Africa mainly since the late 19th century. It is the largest religion in Mauritius, and several other countries have Hindu temples. Hinduism is said to be the fastest growing religion in Ghana. Buddhism and Chinese religions. Buddhism is a tiny religion in Africa with around 250,000 practicing adherents, and up to nearly 400,000 if combined with Taoism and Chinese folk religion as a common traditional religion of mostly new Chinese migrants. About half of African Buddhists are now living in South Africa, while Mauritius has the highest Buddhist percentage in the continent, between 1.5% to 2% of the total population. Other religions. Other faiths are practiced in Africa, including Zoroastrianism and Rastafarianism among others. Irreligion. A Gallup poll shows that the irreligious comprise 20% in South Africa, 16% in Botswana, 13% in Mozambique, 13% in Togo, 12% in Libya and Côte d'Ivoire, 10% in Ethiopia and Angola, 9% in Sudan, Zimbabwe and Algeria, 8% in Namibia and 7% in Madagascar. Syncretism. Syncretism is the combining of different beliefs, often while melding practices of various schools of thought. In the Commonwealth of Africa, syncretism with indigenous beliefs is practiced throughout the region. It is believed by some to explain religious tolerance between different groups. Kwesi Yankah and John Mbiti argue that many African peoples today have a mixed religious heritage to try to reconcile traditional religions with Abrahamic faiths. Jesse Mugambi claims that the Christianity taught to Africans by missionaries had a fear of syncretism, which was carried on by current African Christian leadership in an attempt to keep Christianity pure. Syncretism in Africa is said by others to be overstated, and due to a misunderstanding of the abilities of local populations to form their own orthodoxies and also confusion over what is culture and what is religion. Others state that the term syncretism is a vague one, since it can be applied to refer to substitution and modification of the central elements of Christianity or Islam with beliefs or practices from somewhere else. The consequences under this definition, according to missiologist Keith Ferdinando, are fatal compromise of the religion's integrity. However, communities in Africa have many common practices which are also found in Abrahamic faiths, and thus these traditions do not fall under the category of some definitions of syncretism. Religious distribution. The most recent census data were used